A 23-year-old woman vanished along one of the most beautiful highways in America. One moment she was driving along the California coast, sunlight reflecting off the Pacific Ocean. The next moment, she was gone. No wreckage on the road. No damaged guardrail. No witnesses who saw what happened. Search teams spent days combing Highway 1 near Big Sur, scanning every curve, turnout, and cliffside. Helicopters flew overhead. Patrol units drove the same winding road again and again. But what no one realized was this. They were incredibly close to finding her. In fact, they passed her location multiple times. The missing woman was only about 200 feet away from the road they were searching. Just not where anyone was looking. Before we continue, if you enjoy powerful real stories like this, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps the channel grow and allows more stories like this to reach people. Thank you. Now, let's begin. Late afternoon sunlight stretched across the rugged cliffs of the Big Sur coastline. Highway 1 is often described as one of the most scenic drives in the United States. The road winds along steep coastal mountains, hugging the edge of the continent. On one side, jagged rock rises sharply upward. On the other side, the Pacific Ocean crashes against cliffs hundreds of feet below. Drivers travel this road for the view. But the beauty hides a quiet danger. Sharp curves appear suddenly. Guardrails disappear in certain stretches. Coastal fog can drift across the road without warning. One mistake here can be catastrophic. That afternoon, Angela Hernandez, 23 years old, was driving south along the highway. Angela was from Portland, Oregon. She had decided to take a solo road trip down the California coast, enjoying the freedom of the open road. Her Jeep Patriot moved steadily along the narrow highway. Traffic was light but constant. A few tourists pulled into scenic turnouts to photograph the coastline. Other vehicles passed in both directions. Everything appeared calm. The cliffs glowed gold under the lowering sun. The ocean shimmered silver beneath them. Then something happened. Later reports suggest Angela swerved suddenly to avoid an animal that darted onto the road. It only took a split second. A quick jerk of the wheel. A slight overcorrection. On a highway this narrow, that can be enough. The Jeep drifted toward the edge of the pavement. The tires lost traction on loose gravel. Then the vehicle left the road entirely. There were no dramatic screeching tires or long skid marks. The Jeep crossed the dirt shoulder and went over the cliff. The drop was estimated to be around 200 to 250 feet. The Jeep plunged down the steep coastal cliff, tumbling violently. Metal slammed against rock. Glass exploded outward. Gravity did the rest. Above the cliff, nothing seemed unusual. No loud explosion. No plume of smoke visible from the road. The terrain below was steep, uneven, and mostly hidden from the highway. From a passing car, the ocean was visible. The wreckage was not. Drivers continued along Highway 1, unaware that a vehicle had just fallen from the road. Within minutes, more cars passed the same stretch. Tourists stopped at scenic overlooks nearby. They leaned against guardrails, taking photographs of the dramatic coastline. None of them knew that far below them, a crushed vehicle rested near the rocky shoreline. And inside that wreckage, someone had survived. When Angela regained consciousness, the first thing she heard was the ocean. The sound was deep and relentless. Waves crashing against rocks. Over and over again. Her vision was blurred. Her body was in intense pain. The Jeep around her was twisted and shattered. The windshield had exploded. Metal panels were bent inward from the violent tumble. Slowly, fragments of memory returned. The curve in the road. The sudden swerve. The drop. She realized something terrifying. She wasn't on Highway 1 anymore. She was at the bottom of the cliff. The Pacific Ocean rolled only yards away. And above her, the cliff wall rose like a stone tower. From where she lay, the road was barely visible. From the road, she was completely hidden. Angela tried to move. Pain erupted through her chest. Breathing was difficult. sharp and shallow. Later doctors would confirm she had suffered multiple broken ribs, a collapsed lunga, fractured collarbone head, trauma, severe dehydration. At the time, she didn't know the full list. She only knew that every breath burned. Her shoulder throbbed. Her head pulsed. Dried blood covered parts of her face. She tried to stand, but her legs trembled. The ocean roared beside her. No voices. No engines. No footsteps above. She was completely alone. Angela reached for her phone. No signal. Highway 1 is already known for poor reception in many areas. At the base of a cliff, there was nothing. No bars. No connection. No way to call for help. She tried again. Still nothing. The realization slowly sank in. She was trapped. Angela looked upward toward the road. The cliff face was nearly vertical in places. Jagged rock. Loose dirt. Unstable stones. Even if she had been healthy, climbing it would have been extremely dangerous. With broken ribs and a collapsed lung, it was impossible. Every attempt to move caused intense pain. Climbing back to the road was not an option. She scanned the ocean instead. Maybe a boat would pass. But the horizon was empty. The shoreline here was remote and rugged. No fishing boats. No kayakers. No one. Just the ocean. Meanwhile, above the cliff, something else was happening. Angela never arrived at her destination. Hours passed. Calls went unanswered. Messages remained unread. Concern grew quickly. Her family reported her missing. Authorities began searching along Highway 1. Patrol vehicles scanned the road carefully. Officers looked for damaged guardrail skid marks, debris near the pavement. Helicopters flew over sections of coastline. But from above, the cliffs cast deep shadows. The wreckage blended into rock and brush. Search teams looked where accidents usually appear, on the roadway itself. But Angela wasn't on the road. She was far below it, hidden by geography. Back at the crash site, Angela forced herself to focus on survival. The wrecked jeep provided some shelter from wind. But there was a more urgent problem: water. Without fresh water, she wouldn't survive long. The sun along the coast can be intense. Dehydration can arrive quickly. She searched the wreckage. Most items had been scattered or destroyed. Then she noticed something. A small piece of tubing from inside the vehicle. It wasn't much, but it gave her an idea. She began scanning the cliff face for moisture. And then she saw it. A thin trickle of water running down moss-covered rock. Groundwater seepage. Barely visible, but real. Angela carefully positioned the tube beneath the dripping water. Drop by drop. Slowly. Painfully slowly. But it worked. She had found fresh water. That tiny stream became the difference between life and death. Day 2. The adrenaline from the crash faded. Pain intensified. Her ribs ached with every breath. The collapsed lung made breathing difficult. Standing took enormous effort. Food became a problem. There was none. Angela had no real food supply. Her body began running on reserves. She limited movement. The jeep became her shelter. Drink water. Rest. Repeat. That became the routine. The Pacific Ocean added another danger. The tide shifted constantly. Waves rose higher at certain hours. If the tide climbed too high, the wreckage could flood. Angela carefully studied the ocean's rhythm. When water advanced too far, she moved higher along the rocks. Every movement hurt, but she had to stay above the tide. Meanwhile, the search expanded. Her family shared her story online. Flyers spread. News coverage increased. Search teams drove miles of Highway 1 repeatedly. But the geography worked against them. From the road, the ocean dominated the view. The wreckage remained hidden. The searchers were incredibly close. But they were looking forward. By day 4, Hunger began to weaken her. Without food, muscles lost strength. Thoughts slowed. Standing became harder. Still, she continued her routine. Drink water. Rest. Avoid the tide. Wait. Nighttime brought new challenges. Temperatures dropped quickly near the ocean. Wind carried cold moisture. Angela curled beside the wrecked jeep for protection. Sleep came in brief bursts. The sound of waves never stopped. Each crash against the rocks echoed through the darkness. She listened for helicopters, for voices, for anything. But there was only the ocean. By the 6th day, exhaustion had taken a heavy toll. Her body was weak. Breathing remained shallow. Moving even short distances drained her energy. But the water still flowed from the cliff. That small stream kept her alive. Drop by drop. One sip at a time. Above the cliff, drivers continued traveling the scenic highway. Tourists photographed sunsets. Search vehicles passed nearby. Yet no one saw the wreck. Angela remained trapped in a narrow space between the ocean and the cliff. July 13th, 2018. 7 days after the crash. 2 hikers exploring the shoreline noticed something unusual among the rocks. Twisted metal. At first it looked like debris. But as they approached, they realized it was a vehicle. A jeep. Crushed at the base of the cliff. Given the height of the fall, they assumed the worst. No one survives a crash like that. But as they stepped closer, they saw movement. Angela was alive. Weak. Injured. But alive. After 7 days alone. The hikers immediately called authorities. Rescue teams rushed to the location. The terrain made the operation difficult. There was no direct path to the shoreline. Rescuers anchored ropes along the cliff and began descending. When they reached Angela, they confirmed her injuries. Broken ribs collapsed, lung fractured, collarbone hydration head trauma. Yet she was stable enough for extraction. They secured her carefully into a rescue harness. Slowly, she was lifted up the cliff face. 200 feet back to the road. The same road that had been searched for days. Paramedics immediately began treatment. A helicopter arrived to airlift her to the hospital. As the aircraft lifted into the sky, the crash site faded below. The ocean continued crashing against the rocks. But Angela was finally leaving the shoreline behind. Doctors later confirmed the full extent of her injuries. But the outcome amazed many medical professionals. Surviving the fall itself was extraordinary. Surviving 7 days afterward with severe injuries and almost no food was even more remarkable. What saved her? Several small things. The fresh water seeped from the cliff. The partial shelter from the jeep. Her careful conservation of energy. Her determination not to give up. Sometimes survival depends on very little. A thin stream of water. A place to rest. And the refusal to stop fighting. Highway 1 still winds along the cliffs of Big Sur today. Tourists continue driving the scenic route. They admire the ocean views and photograph the coastline. Most never realize that beneath one stretch of that highway, a young woman once survived 7 days alone at the bottom of a cliff, and lived to tell the story.